The Honourable Nanaia Mahuta.
Mr Speaker, this is the government's 7th budget. They promised a surplus some 6 years ago and we haven't seen it. More importantly, we're sitting here after the budget's been read, debating benefits, not jobs. We should be debating jobs if National was doing its job, and it's not. Because what we know is that in the regions, when the government said that the rockstar economy would benefit far more many New Zealanders, we should be debating jobs here today. But we're debating benefits. I wish we were debating the Child Opportunity Bill, where the recognition of poverty in this country would mean that we would be talking about more than just $25. We'd be talking about warm homes. We'd be talking about jobs in our regions and communities and small towns. We'd be talking about how to support those children who are the most vulnerable learners, not supporting charter schools. We'd be talking about how we can support children and parents who have multiple vulnerabilities but want a hand up, not a handout. This is an Oliver Twist budget, and we're debating $25 more going to vulnerable children. Well, we'll take it. We'll take it, but don't expect anybody on this side of the House to say thank you very much. Why? Because it doesn't fix the multiple issues facing vulnerable families, poor families out there in the community, and Chris Bishop sighs. Chris Bishop sighs because he would rather prefer this side of the House says thank you. In fact, the Children's Commissioner puts it far better than I could. Dr. Russell Wills said he himself wasn't expecting the government to increase incomes for children. But let's be clear. A one-off increase is not a plan for child poverty. What we need is a comprehensive plan to reduce child poverty, and that comes from the Children's Commissioner. He himself recognises that a one-off payment of $25 or just an isolated payment of $25 can't fix all the issues. But we'll take it. And we'll take it because we know the hardships that are faced by many children and their families in their communities, in their small towns, and we know that they need it. But will it make a difference? I suspect not. Because if we require parents to be work tested at 3, let me share a story. We're talking about the mother who goes to kohanga and volunteers her time because she's worried about the type of life her child will have and knows that getting an education will make a difference. She has to be work tested when her child turns 3. She could make a critical difference to supporting the education pathway of her under 5-year-old child if she were able to continue to be that mother that she wants to be. The bill makes a number of other changes, and we'll get it to Select Committee so that we can identify these types of issues that will, I think, start to unstitch some of the challenges of how to implement it. Mr. Speaker, the other things about the bill is that it really doesn't address some of the aspects that are really fundamental to work. Requiring people to be work tested in these days and times when there are no new jobs in towns and communities, where people have to make changes to go to where there is work but they've got no support network of family to be able to help them raise their children and have to pay for childcare, $25 won't make much of a difference. And that's the reality. That's the reality. In fact, I heard a constituent say, I want to be work tested because I want a job, but God, it's demoralising. I go in there for my regular appointments and I have to answer the same questions and go through the same types of book-ticking tests. And she said to me, it's just demoralising. Give me anything. Give me a meaningful job because I want to be able to support my children and give them more. But the jobs just aren't there. Sue and I are both from the Waikato. We understand the realities of what's not happening in the region. Mr. Speaker.
Sue Moroney.
Sue Moroney. Sorry to my fellow colleague. We're both from the Waikato. We understand the realities. There have been more job cuts in our area than job creation. And the types of jobs that people are having to consider are the jobs that don't really give them certainty. And this is the challenge. With the 90-day bill, being employed for 3 months isn't a full-time job. It's just living from hand to mouth, hand to mouth. Mr. Speaker, this bill should go to a select committee. I'm pleased that it is going there because there are aspects of the bill that need to be further looked at to ensure that what is intended will actually make a critical difference to the lives of people. Just yesterday, Mr Speaker, I was one of several MPs who was out on the steps of Parliament receiving the petition from Action Station, and I want to thank them for their efforts, because they, as a collective of organisations committed to putting child poverty on the agenda, identified that far more needs to be done, and the government does need a plan. This is an area where, unless we do something meaningful and comprehensive over a long period of time, then those 260,000 children living in poverty will increase. And we don't want to see that happen in a country like New Zealand. Mr Speaker, it's very important that people understand the parts of this bill that the government are trying to implement. The other aspects of being work ready and work testing for part-time work. When I think about this provision in relation to childcare provisions and the practicalities that exist in small communities, it will be very difficult if a person, say some 26 kilometres out of their main city centre, has childcare provisions and in the place where they live has to travel 26 kilometres to get a job for their part-time work, to make those provisions fit for childcare and their preschool arrangements. I know, I live in a small town. I've tried to find those types of arrangements. But more importantly, for people who do not have their natural family support network where they live, this is going to be an impractical type of measure that I think we will see many people express some concerns over. And at the end of the day, I think if we want to support families and children, especially those who are most vulnerable, the changes need to be able to fit them, as well as ensure that they are given a hand up and not a handout. There are simply not enough after-school childcare opportunities to ensure that if, for example, when an early childhood centre finishes or a kohanga finishes at 3 o'clock, in some small towns you won't get early childhood centres that can take them from 3 to 5:30. Some communities, that's just not the reality. And where there is the opportunity to have that, you are having to pay a lot of money, more than $25. And those are some of the practical aspects of what the government is intending, which is work testing people to go into part-time work, and the reality of having children who need preschool education and then after-school care. These are some really important things that the government need to be mindful of. Now, we're not going to knock the bill to the extent that $25 won't make a difference, but the issue for me is, will it make a critical difference? I suspect not. It is a change. It is an increase, there's no doubt about that. But when you look at the real costs of childcare, the real costs of someone who has no car of their own and using public transport to get to a job, $25 won't cover far too much more than an extra bit of bread, some milk, hopefully, and they're still going to have to think about other pressures. Now, the challenge as well, when we talk about vulnerable families, are families with more than one child. Again, you're doubling up on costs for shoes, especially in winter, warm clothes, kai, and if we are really true to what we are hearing in the communities, there are already significant cost of living pressures on families in private rentals who are paying a heck of a lot. $25 is something, but will it make a vital difference? I suspect not. Mr Speaker, I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth and say that poo-hoo all the way through. It's pleasing to see that some effort has gone into recognising that child poverty exists, the extent to which I challenge the government should not be minimised by the piecemeal approach in which they're taking here today. I look forward to hearing the deliberations of the Select Committee and identifying how, in fact, in terms of the implementation of the bill, how it will make a difference to the lives of needy children. Kia ora.